my intention really today is to go into certain details that could be missing sometimes. You know, we know how to do repeated notes. And I was wondering, hi Sean, I can see you on the top there. So you probably, I don't know, you may be thinking, why is she talking about repeated notes again? And I wanted to show certain aspects of repeated notes, especially in context. What happens in the context of a piece of music, in the context of having long notes and rests, because I'm basically bringing to you what I find often is missing when I teach these pieces or similar pieces. So that's the reason for what I'm doing today. So we all know we've done, you know, I've done this. So we know that when we do 3-2-1, it's out, out, in, and so on and so forth. What I find often is missing, and when I tell you these details, take them to heart, because it's not enough to say them and to say, well, you know, the student knows it. I find that I have to repeat and renew very often, you know, these things. People know, but sometimes it doesn't stick. You know, we are in a work that is so multi-layered and has so many different details. So looking at the Mephisto Waltz, so we know that when we do 3-2-1, it's the same as the Scarlatti. But what I find is missing when we are changing fingers on the same key. If we have the same finger, we know that there's a little bit of a shape. We change a little bit the area where we're exactly playing. We're moving a little bit forward, moving a little bit out. But what I find is missing very often is the difference between doing it in the same finger where the arm stays in the same place. When we do it with different fingers, the arm changes, the forearm changes a little bit its placement. What does it mean when I play this reed and the rotation is going to be to the left? The arm is adjusting ever so slightly to the right. So when we do this, you will not see it. But you know, when this doesn't adjust ever so slightly, what happens is the fingers get kind of stuck, crowded. So this is, again, anything that I'm suggesting is if it's missing. It's the kind of thing that I find has been missed. That's why I came across that, because people get stuck sometimes, you know, changing fingers and everything. You know, the rotation, the in and out is there, but something isn't working. And often it's because the right forearm is actually, as you're moving to the left, it's actually going to the right. And when you're moving back to the rotationally to the right, it's actually moving a little bit this way. Now, if you're not sure what that means, you take the second finger, the third finger, this is where you are. You take the second finger, this is where you are, it's a different place. You take the thumb, they adjust ever so slightly. You go back to the 3, the arm is moving a little bit back to the left. Now, as you combine it, the rotation, the in and out, the shaping, you know, it feels like it's in the same place, but it is not. And you know, as we teach people and we get to very advanced points, we wonder, everything looks so good, but those type of things could be missing. Now, what happens here, so people say, how does the in and out work afterwards? I don't sing in and out here. I just sing across, just the rotation. It's right there. So I put the shaping, because you all ask about shaping all the time. But you're not going to feel like a big shaping going back. So I tell you what is the big feelings or the small feelings here. You have this in and out, but this is just a cross. Same thing here. Now what happens here in terms of the in and out? I'm going a little bit in because I'm going to the black key area and I'm going to go 3-2-1, and we know that the 1 has to be in. Now what could be sometimes confusing, because all of this out, out, in, here it's going in, in. Here is the change. Why? Because you're going to the thumb on a black key, that's why. So that out, out, in is not always functioning. Even though you're playing 3 fingers, it has to do also what is the context Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? Has a big influence. So this is out, out, in. Just what I said. Here I'm going a little bit more in, and then even more to bring the thumb to the blocky area. And here I'm moving out, out, back, out, out, in. I'm coming from the blocky area. And this is the same, the same. Now, you see my arrow goes in here, and in. Again, so you've got to look where the music is going. The composer is not writing, it may look all the same, but it's white keys, black keys. The other thing, when people see a rest, very often they break the motions, they stop. This is the end and this is the beginning. That's not how it works. So number one, when you're doing this is the world of staccato. You're leaving the key, you're going to, to another finger, or even if it's the same finger, the key has to come up to go down. I do it minimally, but from here to here to here is legato, and it should be legato, and if there was no rest, I would continue the legato. Because there's a rest, I get off a little bit, but the shaping continues. All the movements continue as if there was no rest. And I would say that has been my campaign now for quite some time, to make people aware that when you have the rest or long notes, the motions don't stop. They are there as if there were no rests. You can come off, you can do what you're doing, but I come off, but I continue as if there were no rest. The other thing I'm very aware of, whereas all of this is very close by, this is a leap. This is a staccato leap. So when you do it yourself, when you're teaching, just go look in a little bit what's the same and what's different. The composer didn't write things so it will be easy for us to do. It's all the, it's the same all the time. It is not. It's constantly changing. So you have here, I'm sorry. Sorry, where was I? Right here. This is your leap. Single rotation, single rotation. Rotations don't change. The out doesn't change. Out, out, in. Same thing here. So when you're teaching it, I would circle those two notes. Because you know how people don't look when we have leaps, there's still the tendency to go to the second note instead of using the first note to get you to the second note. Being the most important note is the first note of a leap. Yeah, talked about staccato and legato, very important where it's staccato to play staccato, but where it's legato to play legato. Works better, feels better. Now I took another example from there, and the reason I did that, again going into what's the same and what's different, is most of the same example, the first example, mostly white keys with some black keys. Here you're starting with black keys. So what do we do? Is it the same? Is it different? It's the same. Same in a sense that this is out, in, and then I'm playing legato, let go, out, in. See, it's very much smaller. Here it's a little bit more. Here, this area, is, we still have the same motions, but measure them. If you start to out, those are the things to watch. If you start to out, you have a big in. So start in, always live in the world of how little can I do, because when it comes to playing quickly, you don't want to bring large motions. You want as small motions as possible. And again, this is all legato. You let go here, out, in. This is an out again. And as you know already, from all the teaching, it's so important to know what's the note to come out on. Sometimes it's the first in a series of notes that go out or in a series of notes that go in. So often it's gradual. Here you just, one finger goes out, and it should not be out to here. These are the details. It should be where it is right across from the thumb. Do you see that? As opposed, if you go very out, you have a big in. And that's when people become very proficient in the language of the Taiwan approach. Often these are the amounts of things show up. How much, how little. So coming out, out, in, across, a little bit out, more, bigger in. Often people miss the fact that there is a thumb or fifth finger, but especially the thumb requires the most motion going in because it's the shortest finger. So to take those amounts into consideration, and then again letting go, coming out, in, coming out, going in, 3 ins. And then out, out, in, and again. So here it is, and those are the things that I find I'm missing. So if you tell yourself, I know it already, think about it again when you go into the music. Because we know, but sometimes what we know, we don't always do. You know, people say, I know it, but it's not there. So the knowing from here has to go into here. That's the whole idea, you know, to be effective. So now, why is this important? Because we tend, you know, here is a repeat of the same phrase, except at the beginning it's out, in. Here it's coming from another place, so it's in. You miss that, you're in trouble. And then I gave you a little bit of the shape. But I can tell you, in my hand, I do the shaping because you all want to know the shaping, and it's important to know. But it doesn't mean that the shapes always are, you know, when you feel, you know, something going up, you know, that it's very, you feel it gradually, very perfectly. You can have an overshape that gets a little bit higher and then feels very across. I think the rest, once I get a bit higher, I think rotationally. I don't think the shape. Because the shape will happen most of the time. And you know, as the distances get larger, the shaping gets a little bit flatter. It's not as obvious. It's not as obvious as that. And sometimes we want it to be very obvious, but it's not.